Hey friends, it's your old Uncle Fum. Today we're going to talk about what happens when you forget you have your kayaks on your roof and you pull into the parking structure. Alright. Oh, we got a little bit of a dent. And you can see this side of the hull doesn't look too bad, but that was the side that was lower. And then when we come around, we have a huge dent here. See where that goes right in. And then up here, you see we split the hull. Right on the bottom. So that's actually got a hole in it there. You can see there's that big dent. I'm going to step right in the kayak. There's my foot. And there's that big dent. I'm going to go like that. Pop that big dent out. So now it looks like I've got the dent popped out. Let's flip it over and look again. You can see there's where that big dent was. So now the main problem is going to be right here, sealing this kind of split that happened. And it's kind of nasty there. Alright friends and neighbors, here I am. We've got the kayak up where it's at a workable level. There are three ways I've considered working on this. I considered first, this is plastic. Plastic gets soft, it melts. I could melt this back together with a little bit of heat. Another thing I thought is I could use an epoxy compound, a nice marine epoxy, to fill in all that area and seal it and bond it. That'd be a good way too. Or of course there's that other spray sealant, and I didn't take out a big section and fill it in with screen, but that's another option too. I'll tell you what I'm going to use. I'm going to use all three. First, I'm going to try to melt it together a little bit, and if that works well enough or doesn't work at all or however it works, I'm going to finish up with that. I'm going to put on the marine epoxy to make sure I get it all filled in and build up a little bit more space over here where it's been gouged. I want to have a little more material. And then finally, coat it with Flex Seal. Okay, again, right here, right along there, just about the same length as this starter, that's where the gouge is. So first I'm going to try the fire. See if we can heat that. And you can see, I can see, it's starting to go down a little bit, melt in. I don't want to burn it too much. Now the first thing we should all remember is that this kayak had a hole in it. So it was worth trying this. I'm going to tell you right now, it didn't do the job. It did melt some, but it didn't really bond together. I was able to get to go back down to shape a little more, but that's about all. So now, after it cools a little bit, I'm going to go and do the next step of the project. I'm going to put on the marine epoxy sealant. Alright, we tried using heat. So now we're going to try a good marine weld epoxy. Open the container, and this syringe will put out equal amounts of the epoxy resin and the curing agent. Once I have those two together, I'll take them and mix them up real well until I get a nice even consistency here. You can see this is a good blend for us because this is white in its finish. I don't want to take too much time doing this because it's a 5-minute epoxy. It's going to have 5 minutes, it'll be cured and ready. or hardened anyway, and then in another 24 hours it'll be fully cured. So let's take that. We're going to make a liberal application. Spread a good amount of this goop all over here. Go through the entire gouge to fill it in. And not just fill it in, I want to go out past the gouge, maybe about an inch or more. And that way you're sure that you get a good seal all the way along. Now you may question why I'm doing this, and the reason I'm doing this is because I didn't feel like going out and buying another kayak. Let's be honest, a kayak is going to cost me somewhere around $300, even for a cheap kayak to begin with, which is what this one was. On the other hand, this cost me maybe $10. Alright, now we're going to let this sit for a while. It's going to take about 5 minutes to really cure completely. Probably the best thing to do once this is done here would be flip it over and do the inside the same as I did the outside. Now I used this kind of a product once before. That was on a motorcycle coolant reservoir, and it held the hot water just fine. In that case I did only do the one side, so I think the one side might be just fine, especially since the pressure is going to all be from this side, trying to get through that way. So we'll let this sit and cure, and then we'll go on to the next step. Here's a close-up look at that section. Here's our torn section that got sealed back up with that epoxy. You can see the epoxy is a little whiter and glossier, and that'll cure in about 5 minutes. We'll flip it over maybe and do the other side. Okay, flip the kayak over at this point, and the damaged area is on the inside. It's underneath the seat here, so it's hard to get to. But if you could look real close, you can see it down in there, just before you reach that kind of smashed up block of styrofoam. Two little styrofoam bits right on it. So it's probably a very good idea now to seal that side as well. And with that way the two sealing sides will join at the opening and make a good solid seal all the way through. Okay, we took a little time, like overnight, to let this cure. So let's take a look at the seal we got with the epoxy weld. And it's a white material, so we can see it matches the hull, but you'll be able to see it. Right down here. There you go, there it is, right along here. Up through here. It is not sticky or anything, it's completely cured. It has a kind of a plastic feel to it, or a rubbery feel. But it feels very solid. If I push down on the hull of the boat, it doesn't split open, nothing happens to it. And if you remember, I also have a good thick coat of this on the inside of that wound, so that should completely seal it. Okay, it's been a while, a couple of days, because we had to let the epoxy cure. And now that the epoxy is cured and has been cured, it's time to use our third step in the process, which was some of that spray sealant stuff. And I know you know what stuff I mean, because you've seen the commercials there on your TV set where they take a boat and they take the bottom out, replace it with a screen door that they spray with the stuff. Would I trust that to completely seal my boat? Hell no. I certainly would not. However, I will trust it to cover over the seal I made with the epoxy. It's just to add another coat on it to make sure that there's plenty there to keep everything from getting worn down. So that's all we're going to do here. I already have a couple of coats on. I'm going to add my last coat to it. There we see the seal I put on before. I have little drips of it. The stuff's a little messy. Be careful when you're working with it. There's the sealed area, and you can see here where the patch was made. I also came up here to the front. This area I had been dragging along when I portaged the kayak, and it was getting a little bit worn through. I could see the yellow layer beneath the white, so I put a little extra on that, so that will wear a little better too. So here we go. We're going to spray this stuff, and you can see how it sprays. You want to be about a foot away, maybe a foot and a half. You want to have a good warm day. It says it works best over 60 degrees. So we're going to spray a little bit of that stuff, and you can see it coming on. Going to spray it in sweeping strokes. Get a nice thick layer over to make sure that everything is completely covered. I'm going to go a little farther out than I actually need to, because obviously you don't want anything getting in to where the actual opening was, and if you cover way out, it makes it a little safer. So there's that. Got a good sealed patch over there. Put a little more on here. Just make sure we have a good layer, and you can see it sprays over a little bit. Just make sure we have a good layer on the section there that gets dragged. That way it'll all be protected if I have to drag it along. And we'll see soon enough whether we have to worry about that wearing off if I drag it. We'll try that later on, once we have it all together. But all in all, I would say that the repair is at this point complete as it's going to be. We're going to have to let this dry. It takes 24 hours to set, and really 48 hours to fully cure. Once it's all set and cured, the only way to really toughen it, and I think you all know this, is we'll have to put it in the water. As you can see, I'm out in the water. I don't see any water coming in the boat. Kayak seems to be dry. I can't say it's the best launch site, but it is what it is. So there you go, an entire kayak repair after going through the parking shelter. Yes, you can repair your kayak. A repair to your kayak after a kind of a gash that I got in the parking structure is possible. And I'm the living proof. We have 3 layers of repair. The first, trying to heat it, put it back together, did not work. The second, using marine epoxy, worked wonderfully. The third, which I used just as an extra layer, was of course the spray-on Flex Seal. So that shows you how to repair your kayak if necessary. This works with the kind of a plastic kayak that you get for a couple $100 as an easy beginner kayak. Thank you very much. This is Uncle Fum signing off.